So here's a new recording for our question and answer period. And make sure you remember to unmute yourself if you want to say something or ask a question. I think I want to kick it off by asking if I was wondering how the program relates to the planetarium, the Adler Planetarium overall, and for example, do the participants get planetarium shows?
Yes, so teens become participants, so they're immediately as part of our Adler Planetarium family. They do get badges that say they're a teen participant. Again, this is work that's being done at the planetarium. The exposure that Adler is doing is bringing science and astronomy work to communities that don't really get to come or exposed to that much of this type of work in their own communities. So that's where I come in, where I've had a relationship with the Little Village community, and that's where going to World Language High School ended up working for us. It's not just limited to World Language, it's just I'm one person, and this is where it's happening. Students are always welcome to come. This school actually has been to the museum on school field trips. They just came in on Tuesday to just have a tour, be exposed to what the planetarium has to offer. So that's how they're related to the work that we do. In addition to the work specifically here is on light pollution, so it's not just an environmental issue or an astronomy issue. It's, a well-rounded form of informing the community about this issue that's happening in our own neighborhood, and it's because we can't see the night sky. So.
Okay, other questions? Actually, I do have another question myself, but this one is a general question to all the attendees of this seminar. And that is, how do you relate with this? Have you had, the people who are attending here, have you had any ideas for serving or reaching your own local communities and projects that are either like Rosalia's light pollution awareness program, or any other kind of community relationship?
I'll go on that one. I'm attending a educators conference locally at the university here and engaging them about my portable planetarium business. But because I'm in this local IDA chapter, I'm also going to be seeing if I can push the idea for science teachers to encourage some of their students to do science projects about light pollution, and then our chapter could, kind of support their efforts and talk to them and give them ideas, that sort of thing.
That's awesome. There needs to be more education on this as well. So.
We have more lurkers than responders here, of course. That's usually the case. Actually, it's not always the case. But since Andy brought up the IDA a couple times, the International Dark Sky Association, I do have another question. Rosalia, you mentioned students, some students having fear of the dark. Yep. And also the idea of lighting, like especially street lighting, as a means of reducing crime. But the IDA has documents, and they've tried to find proof or not proof of the relationship between lighting and crime. Mm-hmm. I wondered if you had any insights or any thoughts or opinions on that.
So that is still a research project for myself and also for the students, because crime crime is defined in different ways, right? In this situation, in this neighborhood, crime has a lot with gang violence. And some research and readings that I've done within crime is the lighting, right? With cars, for example, or there's somebody like behind, and certain lighting is more appropriate that you can actually see a person. So that is actually a project that I'll be working on to do more research that becomes part of a project for the fall, because it is something that is talked about but not talked about as much. So that's my what I have for the crime portion of light pollution.
This is Andy again. The one study I know of about lighting and crime was from Chicago, where they decided to light up alleys in Chicago, and so they did a study of crime there and found that actually crime went up after the alleys were lit. I don't know more details than that, but yeah, I know that's pretty much the only study anyone ever quotes, because I think it's one of the only ones out there.
Yeah.
Well, there are other studies, I think, but that's an interesting support or evidence to support the idea that you actually would increase crime by having it lit, because criminals like to have their areas lit so they can see what they're doing. And if it's completely dark, can't see what you're doing, that's scary to the criminals too.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things too is glare and harsh shadows and lighting, rather than just a subdued lighting, really increases. Well, it's a safety hazard for one thing when you can't see evenly illuminated things, and so bright lights and glare is one of the problems there.
And that's also the common misconception that the brighter things are, the safer you are. That a lot of people just make that connection instinctively.
Yeah.
More
So
light means safer conditions.
right. So when we take the students out to the dunes, right, it just gets darker and darker, and so that's again like the fear of, Rosie, where are you taking me? Like, why is it so dark? Which is funny, but at the same time, I understand their fear, right? And so some of the students, it takes them a little bit to actually get out of the bus to then be able to look up and see the night sky. And it's because they're around light all the time, right? So, and it's that indication as well that like anything that's lit is lit, like it's awesome, it's safe. So. Vince, I see you asked, I'm curious about how you use the Loss of the Night app with students. I encourage them to download it, but if they're not able to download it, we have tablets that we practice using them out in the classroom. So they learn how to actually use it to look up and to try to look for a star. And that is also part of the work that they'll do in the dunes. The after school program students will teach them how to use it. And it's just, again, an assignment, encouraging them to use it. If you look at the My Sky at Night, it's not done a lot, or it's not, the clear night data is not provided. So that is something I've been trying to work on to do more of a better project. And it's, again, I think because we don't meet at night, it makes it a little bit harder to have the students do it. And again, which is also why the workshop is going to be a little bit different in the fall. So there's a little bit more of that hands-on. We'll meet once or twice at night in the safety portion, so the students feel safe, and the parents also know that they're safe with us. So that's just them practicing. We practice in the classroom first just so they get used to it, and then again encouraging them to do it by themselves outside of the classroom.
You responded to it. That was a chat question from Vince, but I noticed that Josh put in a thing in chat about what Cal Academy has done with citizen science like BioBlitzes. I don't know, Josh, do you want to say anything about that out loud for the record, or you're no mic? Oh, he's got no mic. So I'll finish reading his, but I'm not too aware of, he's not too aware of the efforts. He said they have some hands-on activities surrounding urban light pollution and influence on animals and astronomy, but not linked to citizen science per se. So that's from Josh at Cal Academy.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah.
curious about the data that the students have collected and what's been done with it.
Yes. So being honest, it's been a little hard for the students to provide accurate data in the last 2 sessions. And I think, again, the classroom portion, because it's kind of like an assignment that they have to turn in. And so they know they have to like submit something. So it's a work in progress that working with Far Horizons and the Straternauts is that as a collective of all 3 of our groups, we're going to be gathering the students as Far Horizons does a balloon launching to do some data collecting and pictures from space. The students will be following that path and doing sky quality meter data. So then collecting all of that data to then analyze it and then see if there has been some form of impact from the space pictures to on the ground data. And so that's going to be something that will be up and coming. So this is our project that we'll be doing in April because, again, the struggle that I've had with the classroom portion is the students are like, oh, yes, the reading is actually a 19, when 19 is, you know, how I tell the students that the higher the number of the sky quality meter measurement, the darker the sky. So therefore, it's like your grades. The higher the GPA, the better, correct? So when they put in a 19, when they're living in the heart of Chicago where there's a lot of light, I know that's not accurate information. And again, that's the struggle because we're having and asking them to do this on their own, that it might have to be something that we do as a group. So in April, we will have more data in that sense for that.
I had a question about those light quality meters. How are they calibrated, and where do you get them? Are they expensive units, or are they mass produced and easy to come by?
Yeah, so I buy them online through Amazon. They're about $125. If you use Globe at Night with students, I know they are able to provide those same sky quality meters for free. The Globe at Night, why we don't use it in the classroom is because the students are, it is also like an online computer format, not necessarily a phone sector for them to use. But, you know, depending on the budget, we own 12 of them, and they've, you know, we've added a little bit more and more each year. Because of the collaboration of the 3 groups. And so again, it depends on the budget. Globe at Night is a really cool source as well, but it just hasn't worked with us in the school portion of it. So maybe as we continue to do more collaborative work, that's how that would work.
I'll just pipe in here because I know that Unihedron has a more expensive unit that's meant to set up and download data regularly to a computer, and you know, something like that, you know, you avoid the pitfalls of user error sort of thing, and that's supposed to be one of the more valuable sorts of data to have, is having long-term data over one location over the year, because you know, from night to night the moisture in the air and whatnot affects the sky quality reading as well.
Yeah, Far Horizons uses that a little bit more when especially when they're doing their balloon launching at night and collecting that data. Again, with the students, it's just a little bit harder to do that.
You don't want to eliminate the citizen from the science, though, too. So you got to somehow include them, right, and get them active.
Yes. So yeah, so that's again collaborating and doing every so often the balloon launching and experiencing all of that. So they're not completely not a part of it. It's just the limitation and the resources, right? But still exposing them like, hey, this is so cool that you should still come and see what we're also doing at the planetarium. And this is how we're working. So that's why there's 3 different levels, or the 2 levels that the planetarium that we're doing. So there's that data collecting and the analyzing and the creating a GoPro, to then bringing the awareness. And this is where my program comes in. So that's where that collaboration is going to be working more closely as a year starting this year. And because we saw that there was this lack of 2 different programs doing light pollution work, so let's try to bring them together and see how they work collaboratively, and still doing what they emphasize in their strengths. So the awareness and then the engineering part. Yeah, any more questions or conversations?
I'm curious about what the sort of work they're doing with the balloon. So I wasn't clear on that.
Yeah, I actually didn't bring this up too into detail. So Far Horizons, they do, in Straternauts, they do some balloon launching. So helium balloons, they take them out to Kankakee, about an hour and a half away from Chicago. And so they have a camera that takes pictures and video, and takes it up to the stratosphere. And then it's being tracked to, once the balloon stops being in space. And so that's part of the work that they do. And in the light pollution part, we've done night launches, and it's to collect that night data and to see what is happening, right, light pollution rises through space, while the students, which is the work in progress that I'm talking about, will be collecting the on-the-ground data, so we can then see that impact that is actually happening or no impact with the light changes that Chicago has done with the street changes. Mm-hmm.
It's something I forgot to do. Rosalia, could you unshare your screen?
Sure.
And everybody else, if you could unmute your sound, everybody, and I'm going to unmute Chris for this too, because we never really properly thanked Rosalia for coming and doing this. So I want to officially thank Rosalia. That was a wonderful, great presentation. And let's have a round of applause.
Thank you.
If you're in Chicago, please come and check us out, or maybe one of our events out in the community. So.
And actually, we're running a little early. If there's any last questions, I mean, we're not running late. We're running early. So if you have questions, feel free to ask. But in the meantime, what I want to do is one more thing, is I'm going to share my desktop and show. See if I can get this. Just mention what the next next Planetarians Web Seminar will be. This is what we're looking at now as the PPA homepage. And for next month, and by the way, next month has a 5 Fridays. So we're sticking to the last Friday of the month. So this is the 5th Friday in March. We're going to have Julia Plummer, who is sort of a premier planetarium research person, education research and planetarium education research in particular. And she'll be talking about educational research in the planetarium. So that should be a good one too. If you ever want to check when the next web seminar, you can see it on the PPA website. Let's see, we also, while I'm on this website, under events, there is a calendar which I haven't populated tremendously, but the seminars are on the calendar too. Although I don't see it on the calendar here. I put it up there. Maybe it's because it's already passing. Okay, but so I'm going to have to play with this calendar and make sure that it's turning up live for everybody next month. Okay, so once again, thanks everybody for coming. This was a great seminar. Any last words from anybody?
No, thank you for giving this opportunity. So follow us on Twitter and Instagram so you can see our updates if you are able to on Adler Teams.
Okay, and I'll let you know when the recording is up on the YouTube channel. We'll put it up on YouTube.
All right, sounds good.